I'm Charlie Pierce, and I'm running for Kenai Peninsula Borough Mayor 2017.
Where are you from? Where were you born?
I was born in Germany. I was a military dependent, and my father was in the military. I was born there. In 61, we moved to Fort Benning, Georgia, and I spent most of my young adult life in Columbus, Georgia. And in 1975, we moved to Alaska.
Do you remember anything of Germany? Were you there long enough?
No, I was just a baby. I've always said that the only thing I ever left in Germany was my umbilical cord.
Oh, that's funny. What branch of the military was your father in?
I was in the Army.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. The military takes people to interesting places. It brought my dad to Alaska in the late 60s.
Right.
And so 75, what brought your family up here?
Well, my mother, actually. My mother was also attached to the military. She was a civil service employee and worked for the PX Exchange, and she was the manager of the store out there at Fort Ridge. So I was still in high school. Graduated in 77 from Bartlett High School, and immediately went into the construction department at NSTAR and spent 39 years with NSTAR. And in June of this past summer, I retired.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow, that's a success story, starting at the bottom and going to the top.
Right, I did. Very rewarding place to work. A lot of challenges over the years. Great education. I worked with wonderful people and worked with the community, the public at large. And in 1990, I came down here as the general manager of the operations for NSTAR, and I was here until my retirement date.
Managing people is an art. I mean, I know it's a skill that can be learned, but I think managing people and dealing with people in general is a skill that I like when people bring that to public office.
Mm-hmm. You know, it was challenging but very rewarding. You know, I learned a lot. You know, you have to be a generalist to deal with people, and I've dealt with many folks over the years. I think I raised a bunch of young adults and helped them go through college and just exciting times. You know, NSTAR had some real growth spurts. You know, we had the gas project to Homer, and I managed that, and that was just a real exciting time.
We are. I'm looking at a picture of your family. Tell me about your family. How many kids do you have, and where are they?
Well, I've got 2 sons from my first marriage, and then I have 3 sons from my second, and those 5 boys between Bonnie and I, we've raised those 5 boys, and from those 5 boys, there's 10 grandchildren.
Wow.
Bonnie's oldest son lives in Tacoma, Washington, and he has 6 kids. I have beautiful kids. They're pretty exciting and lots of energy there. And you know, I have my oldest son lives in moving back to the peninsula here, and he has 3 kids. And then my youngest boy just had a little baby boy named Grayson. So.
Well, congratulations, because I was going to ask, and then I looked at your picture here on the back of your rack card, and then I realized I didn't need to ask why, after 39 years with NSTAR and living on the peninsula here for the last number of years, why are you still in Alaska? Well, it's pretty obvious, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have family here, so pretty well entrenched. We love Alaska. You know, you can really travel. We've traveled a lot, and when you go to other places and then you come back home, you're always looking forward to coming back home.
Yeah. Yeah, and no stranger to public office, borough assembly, and so forth. Why borough mayor? What made you say, you know what, I think it's time? You know,
I always said when I left the assembly, I said if I ever came back to public service, that I would never ever do it again as an assembly member. You know, rewarding times, but most of them were frustrating, and I feel like I can make the greatest difference and have the greatest impact as a mayor. You know, when I came down here in 1990, I met a gentleman that was the mayor at the time. We worked very closely. The company, NSTAR, was working very closely with the borough on the USAID process. And Don Gilman was the mayor at the time. And I never met a more level-headed and reasonable man in my life. He was and I watched him work with the assembly and with the community and the public. And I think that many of his traits I certainly would love to be able to emulate. And I think you know, he used to joke with me about well, someday you'll be the mayor, and I always said no way, there's no way. And at that time I didn't even ever want to serve on the assembly, but I've done it, and I think I still have a little bit more to accomplish in my life, and I think being the mayor would be a rewarding experience for me.
It's easy to define what leadership looks like. In a sense, you just know it when you see somebody who's a leader and they're operating in that capacity. What's your definition of leadership? What is good leadership to Charlie Pierce?
Well, I take ownership and the responsibilities that I have first and foremost, and then I think you always need to set the example for the people that report to you and that you work alongside. But I think in general, I mentioned earlier, being the generalist. There's a vast world out there with many, many, many challenges, and when you're running a corporation or a company, you need to do the best, and you need to be honest with the people that you're serving. And I think that I've worked for some good folks that have taught me a lot about empathizing and being a role model for others. And I can say that having empathy, being able to understand. I always told my employees, your family comes first. Family first. If your family's comfortable and taken care of, then you have a clear head and you have a clear attitude where you can come in and provide a worthy service for the day. But
I think it's interesting that as you look around the state of Alaska right now in 2017, there's been easier times to run for borough mayor, Charlie. There's been, I guess I would say, better financial days. This is a challenging time, and I think that's why I asked about leadership, because I do believe now is a time not to look to. I think it's a time to look to people that have proven that they can lead, and that's why we are having this conversation, because I believe that you can lead. I've seen it. I've witnessed it. I've been privy to it relative to your work with NSTAR and on the Assembly. And so from that aspect, I just say, okay, Charlie, if it's 2018, you're borough mayor, what is your attitude towards the economy, and where do you wake up in the morning? Are you an optimist? Are you a realist? You've already said you're a generalist. Kind of where do you see the economy going, and how will you approach it?
Well, Alaska's a feast and famine type economy. We've all sat back and we were driven. The dollar, the oil, the value of a barrel of oil really drives much of what we do in the state of Alaska. And the attitudes that are reflected are affected by the daily market price of a barrel of oil. And like it or not, that is what has fueled the economy and funded many of the blessings and the nice things that we have been afforded. Going in as mayor, I recognize that there are challenging times, but I've never really been afraid of a challenge. I think I have the skill sets to go in and make good decisions that are in the best interest of the residents of this borough. There's nobody that would go into that office and want to protect what we have more than me. I'll take ownership of the daily duties of being the mayor, and I'll make good business decisions every day. I'll circle myself, however, with very strong individuals that are talented. I think much of the success that I've been afforded have been directly related. There's a correlation and a clear line back to the people that have been around me, that I've worked with as a team, where you create a team of strong individuals and you can have good results. I had a boss one time who used to always remind me, he says, what do you want it to look like at the end of the day? How do you want it to look? And if you can focus on that, focus on your attitude and how you want it to look. And the outcomes have generally been positive for me. I'm a problem solver, so I think many of the problems that we're going to be faced with, they'll be solved. I can tell you that you're right. I think we're headed for some tough moments here in our borough, but I'm also an optimist. It's the feast and famine cycle. I think oil will recover. What we really need in the state of Alaska is not necessarily the price to recover, but we need more oil in the pipeline. We've talked about diversifying, over the years when we turn taps on, I've said to you before, I feel like we've sat back and we've relied too heavily on that infrastructure, that pipeline that comes off the North Slope, and rather than looking at other opportunities of natural resource extraction, and certainly that's something that I would be focused on as well as other opportunities besides just relying on that resource. So.
I look at the people as a resource, and I don't mean that to say that deep pockets and let's tax them. I mean to say that the people that choose to live here in the borough and on the peninsula are a vast resource. You're going to surround yourself, you've said, with people around you that will be part of your team and help you guide the ship through these challenging times. And I like that analogy. But at the same time, I look at our senior population, and I look at the people that afforded you and I the opportunities to drive on the paved roads and to do the things, and I just look at not that many years ago that it wasn't what we have today, and the abilities to do the things we have been built on the will and the sweat and the brow and the work of so many people that now can sometimes be targeted, maybe even as a resource for taxation. And I'll never forget my grandparents lived until they both passed away on their 50 acres and with their home, and that was continually looked at as a resource for funding more and more and more, and it was really their homestead. And if you could just reflect a little bit on the people that have come before.
Well, there's a senior exemptions. They were created to attract and to create some affordability so that seniors could come here and live here. There's that argument, well, seniors are some of your most well-to-do or financially stable group. Had I been on the assembly when the tax exemption question came up, I would have voted no on it. I think what we need to do in Alaska is attract more seniors. And I think that one way we can do that is advertise that perhaps better and bring more seniors to our community. I mean, we got a community hospital. Both Homer and Saldana have a hospital. We have a hospital over in Seward. And what better way to help pay for that hospital than to have those folks that are going to need that health care the most? They're guaranteed customers. And not to take anything away from them or wish anything bad on them, but I can say that as a community, as a whole, it works. I think that model works, and I think to go in and to disincentivize it now and to somehow after the fact take something away that they were afforded in the beginning and maybe perhaps no guarantees, but certainly something that may have attracted them to come here and to today come in and use that as the first option of, well, we need to now raise some revenues, and I think that's an easy pick. And quite frankly, I'm sure it was insulting to many of them. And as a mayor, I would never do that. I would certainly look for other ways to find affordability or ways to avoid raising taxes and raising revenue. There's got to be a better way to do it.
I admire everything you said so far. I'm thinking in terms of a young person listening to this conversation.
Right.
And they're hearing.
Let me just share that. Let me elaborate a little bit more about that. I have some strong feelings about that. My son, my youngest son, and some of our boys can't live here today because of the job opportunities. When I graduated from high school, they were turning taps on. There was a lot of money on the street in Anchorage. There were many opportunities to go to work. I went to work. I worked for a good company for many, many years. I was afforded. They helped pay for my education. They employed me. They gave me challenges. They gave me responsibility. Look at the opportunities that were afforded to many of us in that generation or that age group compared to a young adult graduating from college or perhaps high school today would have. We need to provide more opportunity and have opportunities for those folks to stay and live here and raise families. And quite frankly, when you look at what's going on in Juneau, it's scary. We've got many of our kids, when they're graduating from high school today, one of the common questions is, where are you going to college? Mm-hmm. Where are you going to go to college? They don't say UAA or Kenai Peninsula College. They look for schools outside of in the lower 48. And oftentimes when they get there, they look for opportunities while they're being educated, and they wind up staying there. So the very kids that we educate and give them the best of educations in hopes of them planning to stay here and stay close to family, they leave.
The brain drain.
It is the brain drain. It's the family drain too, though, because you take family away from family that perhaps it would stay together if you had some opportunities for them.
Mm-hmm.
Look at our governor. Look at the legislature. Look at what they're doing down there. Over $50 billion in the bank, and they can't figure out how to balance a budget. It's funny in a sense. You can sit and laugh about it in a sense. But I think what you really need to do as adults, all of us as residents of this borough and of this state, need to be looking in the mirror and asking ourselves, what is it that we can do to change that mix? It's important who you vote for. It's important who you put in positions of government, folks that can make decisions. It's important. Get to know your candidates. Get to really, really know them.
And let's talk to that young person. And they hear that you graduated high school, went to work, stayed at a company, moved up through the ranks, and retired at the top of your game. What advice would you give to somebody that's listening and wondering what are they going to do or what's next? What's like the best advice you could give a young person maybe starting out today?
Attitude is everything. The attitude that you reflect when you walk in the door is everything, every day. It's more important than an education, your attitude. You can't sell yourself and have somebody want to work with you or be with you if your attitude is not right. So I would say to them, and the next thing I would perhaps say is something that my mother always told me. She said, you can be anything you want to be. You just got to work for it. You got to work for it. You got to be willing to get up every day, be at work on time. Work ethic is important. Work habits are important. Train yourself, educate yourself as best you can. Learn as much as you can. And then go out there, every employer that you work for, make them know that they need you. I did that, and I was afforded a lot of responsibility at a very, very young age because I asked for it. I went in and asked for it. And I demonstrated it. I demonstrated it in my performance, in my job performance, in my attitude.
He is Charlie Pierce, running for Borough Mayor 2017. Charlie, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the time.